THX account is 6% over budget. The case is to be terminated.
Discontinue operation. Report to Thermal Station 62. Discontinue operation.
We have to go back. This is your last chance to return. You have nowhere to go. You cannot survive outside the city shell. We only want to help. This is your last chance.
Coming to you from somewhere deep inside Transition Studios, brought to you by your hosts, Roger and Lito. Welcome to Sci-Fi Rewind!
Hello, welcome to Sci-Fi Rewind. I'm Lito.
I'm Roger.
We're going to be talking about one of my personal favorite films, THX 1138 today. I'm going to start off with doing a little bit of role playing. Then we're going to talk about some behind the scenes stories that maybe we found in our research. Then we're going to take a little critical view of the film and, if we were making this film, what we would change. Then we're going to talk about themes and our interpretation of the film. And then we're going to finish with recommendations. If you like this movie, what movies we would recommend that you check out as well, or movies while we watch this film, movies that came to mind. And then also we're probably going to be telling you what movies or films or TVs programs that we're currently watching that are probably affecting our interpretation of this film at this point. So, all right. You ready to get started, Raj?
You ready?
Mr. Coppola? Hello? I got something I got to tell you. I'm sorry.
It's fine. What do you need?
I'm George Lucas. I went to USC Film School, so...
Oh, all right. Oh, that's very distinguished. How are you doing?
Good. I know you went to UCLA, right? Is that...
Yes.
You're looking for a film?
What do you need?
Okay. I'll get to the point. Don't want to waste your time.
Yes, please.
What do you think about sci-fi?
It's all right.
Are you into the whole dystopian future, scenario? Let me paint you a picture. Okay. Picture a world where emotion and love and just, what makes a human. Physical contact is not allowed.
It sounds like my love life. What's your point?
Well, I got this idea for a movie, Our main character is, he's at work. He's being constantly drilled into, he's constantly being told direction and whatnot. And he's told not to suppress his feelings. And, he struggles with that because as a human, we have these things called feelings. I'm dealing with them myself. And,
Can you define feelings? I'm not familiar with it.
Well, things that make you happy or sad or depressed or moody or, these things that are kind of creep into your head. And anyways, what if you weren't allowed to feel a certain feeling and it was actually against the law? Physically talk or physically connect with somebody, another human. How would you, that's what my movie would be about.
All right. Interesting premise, but
Yeah.
How much money do you think you need to make the movie?
I think I can make it for about 700,000 maybe, in that range. Maybe 800, 700 to 800,000. Yeah, because I do got some special effects, maybe some sound design that's going to be top of the line here. I got some great ideas.
Can you back it up? Do you have anything to prove that you...
Well, yeah, I made this film in film school, and it did very well. It was very well received. It was a short film at that point, though. So.
Do you have a copy of it on you?
Yeah, I can show it to you. You got a projector anywhere?
I'm a film producer, director.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to insult your
Of course, I have a
intelligence.
projector.
Excellent,
All right.
excellent.
We'll get to that soon.
Yeah,
All right.
so I do have a proof of concept here. So obviously it's going to be a lot longer. We're going to delve into the whole mental parts and maybe some suppression of feelings with medication and Overwatch and we're going to have themes like Big Brother kind of, since if that's a thing right now. I don't really know.
You're referring to 1984?
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Yeah. Think of 1984 meets. I don't know. I have this wild chase scene at the end, so I mean, thinking like 1984 meets Speed Racer. Yeah.
All right. Who are your above the line attachments?
Oh. Well, I did. It's no. Hopefully, I'm talking to a friend here because we've worked before. I talked to Robert Duvall about this, and he's not doing much right now. And he's coming off the Rain People, and he's doing his thing, and he's still back at his parents' house. So he's looking for a project, and I think he's the right guy. I think he could sell the role of my main character. His name is THX 1138 or 1138. I haven't really figured out how I want to say. I'll just kind of play around with it in the movie. So
THX sounds like Tex.
Like Texas?
Yes, like Texas. Maybe you could refer to him as Tex.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll take that note, but we'll figure that out later.
I assume you'll want to be the director?
Yeah, that'll keep the cost down. So yeah, I can do the directing if you want.
All right. Do you have anything else you want to say before you leave?
Oh, you're busy. I just think that it did well in film school. I don't see why it wouldn't do well in the masses. I project like multi-millions, maybe tens of millions of dollars. So, it should be a good return on your investment. I've got the locations kind of scouted out. There's these futuristic locations around town and the tunnel. And I mean, I got it all kind of like planned in my head. I just need a little bit of startup money so I can hire the crew and start working on my, effects and I got big dreams here.
Well, projections are always all right, not really withstanding in reality. We'll have to see how that goes. I'll take a look at your short film, and I'll get back to you then. All right?
Sure.
All right. Close the door on your way out.
Oh, will do. Hey, thanks for your time.
Yes, you're welcome. I don't quite know Francis Ford Coppola's demeanor, so
Yeah.
I had to. This is all made up. I don't know if he was that cold.
Yeah,
careless
I don't
of a
know if
person.
George was that open, but we'll see. Maybe we'll find out in the future. I don't know.
Because I know George kind of sounds like this.
Yeah, I didn't want to do his voice because then I can't. I can't maintain that.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure Francis Ford Coppola has a deep voice. So
Okay.
But
But it kind of sounded like you greenlit the film to me.
Francis Ford Coppola was a producer on it.
Right.
So I know he was in charge of it.
Okay. Was there anything I said that kind of made you say yes or?
You mean if it would be made today?
Yeah.
The removement of emotions, I think, is an interesting concept. The removement of emotions can kind of be good for business almost. It's oh God, everyone, just to let you know, there was an explosion nearby. We lost a lot of people. Just please remain calm and just keep
working.
Yeah, keep working.
Great point.
There's interesting ideas throughout it all. While I was watching it, just felt a little disjointed at times.
Okay.
Where it's watching an emotionless kind of world and things like that, and sci-fi setting. I was definitely thinking to myself, yeah, this really was made by the guy who made the Star Wars prequels.
Right. Exactly. This is George Lucas completely raw.
Oh yeah.
Completely not influenced by Hollywood or his friends or his colleagues or his peers or anybody or his family. This is George Lucas stripped down to the bare bones of who George Lucas is. He's not about fun or, a good time. It's about all business, all...
Although I think we should state we watched the director's cut of this.
Right, correct.
And this is actually two versions of George Lucas. There's George Lucas, who was in the past, who, had a vision, and he did everything he tried to do to achieve that vision. And as you can kind of find online, 4 different versions of this movie. There's the student film version. There's the studio version. There's the restored version. And then there's the director's cut. And I would have probably loved to have watched the restored version, but, the original vision he intended, because the director's cut, it suffers from what the original Star Wars trilogy suffers from and that George Lucas coming back and going like, I need to fix my old movies.
Because the studio
Yeah.
put in their 2 cents, and he did not like that. He did not want studio involvement. And this kind of drove George Lucas to be more of an independent filmmaker outside of Hollywood, which at the time, I think that was like the mentality of most of the filmmakers he was working with. Francis Ford Coppola and him were kind of a team at the American Zoetrope. That's kind of like what they were kind of like rebels. They were rock stars. They were like against, they were a part of this system that was kind of dated. Older generation above them was in charge. They were the young, upstart, fresh out of film school, but they somehow got onto the movie sets and were giving a little bit of money to get started, and this is what they did.
Yeah, and I would have loved to have seen that version, because the version I saw was incredibly distracting at times.
Okay.
From the very opening, they're working at this factory.
Right.
And you see a shot, you can see through a window, and I'm looking at the scene, I'm going like, that was not made in 1971. That was remade in 2004.
Right. Yeah. A lot of this was George is very well known to like go back and tweak his movies and add things and because he's got a vision. And I think at the time there was a technology problem. He didn't have the technology to make the films that he had in his head. And he had limitations. But as technology got better, LucasArts, and he made, he advanced filmmaking and he advanced technology. He innovated a bunch of new things. He went back and like anybody would, go back and try to bring his older stuff up to par, right?
Oh, yeah. But that's the thing. This suffers from something I would refer to as the Night of the Living Dead re-release syndrome.
Oh.
George Romero, director of Night of the Living Dead, I don't think owns the rights to the first film.
Okay.
That's actually belongs to his partner. And his partner, around somewhere in the 2000s, decided he wanted to do a re-release of the original Night of the Living Dead. But he also decided to add new scenes. And it's very odd because decades have passed, and he decided, I'm going to bring back that original zombie from the beginning, where he's like walking around and he kills, the main actress's brother. But he's like old and bloated, and they have new technology and new cameras and whatnot. And when you see the new scenes, you're taken out because you're like, that doesn't look like it was made at the same time as this. I'd say THX 1138 looks better in certain regards, but still like there's that disconnect where you go like, that was not made in 71.
Right.
But there's also this one shot where you're going through a parking lot and you're like panning down. And part of me thinks, that looks like it was made in 71. That looks like it's possible.
Okay.
But that's the thing. I'm looking at it, and there's times where I can't tell. There's times I can tell, and there's times where I'm not sure in between. It's like it was a very confusing experience. Not because of the subject matter, but because of like George Lucas almost feeling what I assume is he felt ashamed or something about how it was all handled.
Maybe.
And
we can ask him one of these days when we meet him.
Yeah.
But it sounds like
when
you
we
are
meet
not
him.
a fan of going back to rework your work. Just like leave it alone. It's done.
Oh yeah, I would love to appreciate the work they had,
right?
Like the resources they had,
right?
It just made it work. I know it's also their vision, but I think me as an audience member, when I'm watching it, it actually hurts my like investment in it because I'm constantly being pulled out, and I'm going like, this isn't right.
Okay, well that's some great initial thought, but let's move on to when did you first hear about this film, Raj? And then I'll tell you my initial.
I don't quite know. I mean, I know I've known of it for a while, but it's probably just in passing. I thought before watching this, because I just recently watched it for the first time for this, I thought it was going to be a lot weirder than it was. I thought it was going to be almost an art house piece, and it kind of is. But I thought it was going to be more abstract than it was.
Okay.
And there are scenes in this film where it's like of camera footage of medicine cabinets.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I thought it was going to look almost exactly like that throughout the entire film. And it's not.
No.
It looks rather
Polished for 2004 really.
Oh yeah, there's this one scene when they're essentially creating a policeman.
Yeah, and that's that's a good like pickup. I think isn't that funny? Like humans are kind of creating like something that's going to control them in a way. It's kind of think I don't know. It's a little peek into what I'm thinking about.
George Lucas this is essentially a thesis statement for The Matrix.
That's funny. Yeah. I wonder where they got those themes. So I was trying to think about when I first heard about this movie, and the only thing I could think about, and I don't think I even knew this movie existed, honestly, way after Star Wars. But I did know about THX because it was like the surround sound that was in movie theaters. So I knew about that. I knew about THX because that's what was on DVD players or receivers or something. And you go to the movie theaters and you would hear this, like, you would see THX logo and you would hear this sound. It would be like this, like this thing to like kind of like tell you, hey, you're listening to a cut above type of audio. So I knew about THX, but I didn't know THX 1138 was a movie. I don't even know. Maybe until like the Fanboys film came out and they were parodying all the Star Wars. I don't know if you know about that movie. It's called Fanboys.
I can't recall.
If it wasn't for this movie, we wouldn't have Star Wars. So let's go and take a look. And then I was like, wow, this is way different than Star Wars. This is way like deeper and way like more like this isn't fun. It's not a fun film. What's going on here?
Very much not a fun film. It's very robotic.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it and just like the sex scene in this film.
Yeah.
Very passionless.
Yep.
And it kind of reminded me of a Family Guy gag. At a certain point, they're watching British people having sex, and it's very passionless. And the guy is just on top, going almost, like he's not moving or anything. They're just basically lying on top of each other.
Right.
And he goes, very well, there we are, done. And she's like, well done. And
it sounds like a Monty Python skit that I saw.
But it might be. Family Guy is known for ripping off a lot of gags.
Absolutely. So yeah, no, you're talking about So this whole world, you're not allowed to feel anything. So you're not allowed to have any kind of connection with anybody. So and then you're in violation if you have sex in this world. So that leads me to think about the question like, well, how do they procreate? How do they, And there was that kind of scene, right, where there was the jars and the babies. It kind of seemed like similar to clones, right, from the Clone Wars or the Clone Army. It kind of seemed like that's, and then they're all heads are shaved. They all look the same. They all wearing the same clothes. I don't know. I mean, we'll get into that a little bit later, but that's what I was thinking about when I was watching.
I assume you've watched this a couple of times.
Maybe like 2 or 3 times.
2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
I've only watched this film once, and I still have like very, very serious questions. I think my opinions on the film are mixed. There's like a wide variety of mixed. As I was stating earlier, visual effects and whatnot. There's some look back at the original film, and I go like, that looks like it was really good. And then there's this one scene in a train station. I go like, "Oh God, that looks terrible," and I could tell that's added from in the director's cut.
Right.
It's also just story plot points that I go like, I'm not sure how to feel about this.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of research into George. I've listened to books about him and autobiographies. He's notoriously he hates the writing process. He struggles to write because when you write, you have to go to this place where you have to kind of be in touch with your emotions. But it's not like completely.
He's trying to express himself, but he's not good at expressing himself.
Exactly. He's exactly.
He really needs. I've talked to you about this before. He's an ideas guy. He's a guy to throw out ideas, and that's why things like with Star Wars, he had a bunch of other people rein in his ideas.
Right.
And with Indiana Jones, he had Steven Spielberg, and they were like, Steven Spielberg is like, he will always hear like George's ideas. I go like, oh, that's great. I'm going to put this in the film. And it's like why I give, George credit to helping create Indiana Jones and Star Wars and things like that.
Right.
Why I go like, yeah, with George, you always need someone to be there for him. You need someone to, you can't let him be can't let him have yes men around him.
Yeah, this is what George, with no oversight, this is what George created.
Though I will say, like, I don't think I've quite seen a film like it before. I mean, there's, similarities to 1984 and things like that.
Sure.
But I don't think anyone in their right mind would ever make it. And that's why I think this is still a very unique film to watch.
Very unique. And I'm surprised at this point that it was ever made, And I think George got lucky because there was a lot of Francis Ford Coppola had all these connections. And they built that studio. and he had clout with the movie company. With the Warner Brothers. This was like the first project that they took on as a studio, and unfortunately this was a colossal failure that led to the studio almost, disappearing before it even got started. So this is a huge risk, and this is a huge different shift in Hollywood movie making, Hollywood-backed films. They did this outside of Hollywood, I think. And they did the project, and they were like, okay, here, this is what we created. And, the studios were like, whoa, not what we had in mind. This is not Easy Rider, which is what we thought you guys were going to make, which you kind of did afterwards, with American Graffiti, George Lucas did. But, this was not catching that wave of, neo filmmaking of the time. This is way different, and applaud them sticking to their guns at least, and being like, okay, this is what we him and Walter Murch and
it was the era. It was the era of a filmmaker makes a film.
Yeah,
you didn't quite put in the thought of how much movie is this going to make or things like that. Yeah, you had to think about that, but it was still also like, that's a weird idea. We'll take a risk.
Yeah.
These days, you probably wouldn't take that risk.
No, you want to definitely try to have a return on your investment.
I will also say, I was watching this and I was thinking to myself, this is kind of a movie that could use a remake.
Oh, really?
But then I'm also thinking to myself, maybe it doesn't, but there's a lot of cool ideas that I don't think are...
Are you glad that I kind of made you watch this movie?
I mean, yeah, I didn't hate my time watching this.
Okay.
I was thinking about it, but I'm also thinking of it from a story structure. Mm-hmm. This doesn't really work.
No, yeah. I mean, basically what? He's a worker bee. Mm-hmm. He has this accident because he's dealing with stuff at home, and the home is counterpart, or what is he called?
Mate.
His mate is, wants...
Though I think that's supposed to be more sort of, not like a personal, like physical relationship.
Yeah.
I don't think it's supposed to be. I think that's just supposed to be a nickname for roommate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I think there were also something I noticed when Donald Pleasance wants to become his roommate.
Right.
I feel like there's supposed to be an undertone of homosexuality there.
I was kind of picking up on that a little bit. Like, I thought maybe he wants a physical relationship with somebody too, and
then Robert Duvall just hands him in. It's just like, no, I'm not gay.
You're in violation.
Yeah, you're in violation of gay. Because it's like things like that where it's like ideas that I don't know if they've been fully developed. When Donald Pleasance just gets arrested at the end, it's just kind of like
kind of gives up.
Not even gives up. It's just kind of like, I guess that's over for him.
One thing I should have mentioned, now that I think about the end, is that the wow factor. George does give you a cool ending, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of cool actions and scenes and music and sound design, and I mean, and if you kind of if you know your Star Wars a little bit, you'll hear some spaceship sounds and thrusters and TIE fighters.
And I was going to say, listening to, it was at a certain point I was watching this and I was hearing the radio chatter, and I was like, this is like the radio chatter you hear from episode 4, where it's like they're in the X-Wings and whatnot. And I was like, I could see how this eventually kind of evolved into Star Wars.
Right.
All these weird things he did.
This is a total Star Wars filmmaking prequel. I mean, filmmaking production prequel.
I could see how this kind of led into becoming Star Wars.
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, not how this became Star Wars. I could see how this kind of led George to make Star Wars.
Right. He used some ideas and sounds from this film. So I mean, we kind of blended our history or nostalgia with behind the scenes kind of aspect, right? Or do you have something else you want to add?
I also if I could talk about the cops in this.
Yeah.
This was around the time of the Vietnam era, the Vietnam War, and where America really started to distrust the government.
Right.
This was like the biggest example. The Vietnam War was the biggest example of during World War II and things like that. People kind of had complete faith in the government. This was there was also Martin Luther King Jr. and the treatment of
We were go back 1 year to 1970, and if you go to the list of events, we've got the Kent State shooting.
Yeah,
happening in May. Right.
And so I don't know if George Lucas did take inspiration from this.
Right.
But the emotionless cops that, say they have their best interests, but they'll probably just beat you up.
I think this is all stemming from the Nixon era of the United States, which I wasn't around for, so I can't really speak too highly. I can only
talk about my basic knowledge of Nixon, Martin Luther King, Vietnam, all that era.
Doesn't sound like it was a fun time to be.
It definitely seemed like an era of mistrust and
Yeah, are we still the good guys? It doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, I thought we were, supposed to be championing freedom and democracy throughout the whole United States. It's like, throughout the whole world. And it seems like that illusion was kind of,
it's not even throughout the whole world, even in America, like as you were saying, with the
inclusion. And,
yeah. It's just all these factors that were just making you just like, it's almost like THX. He's starting to like wake up.
Right. He's starting to wake up to the system that's in place here and how he
keeping you complacent.
Yeah, that scene you were talking about. If you want to talk about that now, how there's an explosion on the assembly line, and everyone runs for their lives, and what does the speaker say?
Well, like the people involved near the explosion are going like, yeah, we should probably run, but in a completely different, separate area, they're just like, yeah, a nuclear explosion has basically happened a little off a ways. Don't worry, it's being handled. Do not panic. And, because of the drugs and everything, everyone's just complacent. They're like, no fear. But, later after THX is, no longer medicated and he's like beginning to feel emotions again, he's like terrible at his job. He's dealing with that whatever like little bit of metal he's dealing with.
Right.
And it's like, normally if he were medicated, he would be doing a good job, but now he has like fear starting to creep in and everything.
Right, that he's going to get, fired or, I don't know.
Oh, they're going to realize, like this is the thing. What are they doing to them in the void? Like, are they being re-educated? Are they being studied? What is going on there? Like, they're just also able to leave jail?
Yeah, they can just walk out.
And a hologram is able to, is like a physical body? I don't know if George Lucas understands holograms.
The hologram, I know. I would think there'd be some sort of, mechanism that kind of would project the hologram, but he just kind of existed, which is fine, We just got to suspend,
I would have accepted if there was, some sort of weird robot body underneath, and it's just, there's, projectors and whatnot to make it look like it's human.
Yeah. The science it's not explained, but we just kind of have to accept it.
It's like Man of Steel. Just weird science that's just there, and it's just like, yeah, holograms exist.
So yeah, that's a good point. But we were talking about the environment that spawned this movie, and I think a lot of it had to do with that mistrust to the government in the Vietnam War and the president at the time and everyone's, idea of the United States. And so what do you think we could do, Roger, if we were if we were making this film, what would you do? Like a couple of things, what you do to kind of make this film better?
I would have Sen maybe do something more at the end. Maybe give characters more agency, because I don't quite understand. Like the hologram guy, man, SRT.
Yeah.
Like such memorable names, all these people.
I know. Yeah.
It's not confusing at all when you're trying to figure them out. I don't understand why SRT even decided to, why he was in jail or the void. And I don't understand. There's so many things I don't understand.
So you would make this movie longer so we can get all kinds of answers, is what you're saying?
I don't know. Where you change things and it makes the film worse. I feel, but the story, I would try and give characters agency more.
Okay, so the story and the character development would definitely
I didn't
in some more action.
I didn't realize the whole point of the film was just trying to get out into nature and whatnot.
Right.
And just how it ends, and it's just I guess I'm outside, and I do know that
how about how the chase ends?
How the chase ends.
Yeah. Did you get that part? Because you watched it once. Mm-hmm. Did you understand that the chase was getting too expensive? And that's what.
I kind of find that funny.
Isn't that funny?
It's just like, oh, okay, it's just over now.
Yeah, I should have and when we were pitching, when I was pitching, I should have been like, and the way the movie ends is the people that are chasing him, the cops, they run out of money. And I'm like, because that's kind of like a little thing about, everything boils down to, it's worth my time. Time is money. It's just, you know what I'm saying? Like if it's too much, like I can't afford to do this anymore.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I know what I think one of my problems is that it feels more like the story feels like connect the dots without the lines being like there.
Right.
It's just kind of like, here's an idea.
Free floating idea.
Here's an idea. Here's an idea. Here's an idea. And I would like that connecting tissue to like
a thread.
A thread to make this all feel like it flows more naturally.
So you're saying to make it better, you would find these threads and weave them in a little bit better.
And maybe like that kind of stuff, and maybe character arcs or something.
Sure, that's great.
Like have Sen, SEN. Maybe have it. It's like there's that one moment where he's like, "Oh, I want you to be my roommate and everything." Maybe imply there's that bit of selfishness or something where it's like maybe he lost a roommate. I don't know what happened to his old roommate.
Okay.
Like
maybe he died in that explosion. They did lose like 200 people.
Oh, you mean the explosion at the beginning? Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know if I want him to die then and there. You mean the roommate?
The roommate, yeah.
Okay. Have the roommate die in the explosion.
And he's lonely.
Maybe he notices a change in THX and he goes like, subconsciously, he's kind of like, how is it that he's able to, maybe it's just like he's able to notice a bit of like, THX is kind of almost happy.
Yeah.
Just a bit of a change, and he's like, I kind of want that near me, something like that. And it's like by the end, he like, there's this bits of selfishness from throughout or something.
Because Sen is the guy that's actually watching Robert Duvall and his mate, have all this connection and have he's actually watching him on camera.
Oh yeah,
because everything's on camera, and he's like, maybe he wants that, like he wants to feel that.
Yeah, maybe throw out a bit of selfishness there, or maybe have it that it's like, instead of it becoming selfishness, he actually does form an attachment or something. Because I don't even know if I think he forms an attachment by the end. It's just kind of like he follows along.
Yeah, there's a movie that came out. I think it was in Germany, East Germany. It was called The Lives of Others. Yeah, and it was about this artist and his girlfriend had an apartment, and the agency, the Stasi, I think at the time, and they had cameras and hidden microphones and everything in this to keep an eye on this guy because he was an artist, he was a playwright. And what ended up happening, the same scenario, the person watching actually became aware of like all these other ideas that weren't part of the state's goals and missions, and he actually became part of their little change in thought. He, by just paying attention to him, he agreed with what they were doing, and he changed. And I think that's what kind of happened here with Donald Pleasance. So I think he kind of changed himself.
I mean, I'm not willing to say there aren't character arcs or something or character changes. It's just first viewing, it's kind of hard to notice this kind of stuff.
Right? Yeah.
I really have to try and look them up and go like, what were their names again? Because I think. I got THX and Sen. Right. But like the hologram actor, I kind of got La.
Yeah. Did you see what happened to La? Did you kind of understand what happened to her? Because she said that she was pregnant.
Yeah, she said she was pregnant, and I guess they took the fetus out or something.
Yeah.
You see
something.
See, I don't
really know myself. I was kind of hoping that you'd clarify that for me.
Maybe we need to look into this more. Maybe we need to explore these ideas more because when he breaks out, he's looking for Sen.
Yeah.
No. He's looking for La. He's looking for La. Love or something.
Oh,
maybe.
Nice. Look at you.
And then she's just gone, and he's like, okay, I guess I'm just gonna go somewhere.
Right.
And also there were those 8 men.
The ones in the loony bin with them?
No, like near the end where it's like...
Oh, the ape men. Ape. I gotcha.
Shell dwellers.
Yeah, I didn't recognize them from, like, I think I might have seen a different version of this movie, and I don't remember those.
You might have seen the original theatrical cut.
Maybe.
Near the end, like there's a shell dweller that appears in the void, I believe. And then near the end, you see more shell dwellers. And that's where I think George Lucas came in and added, old George Lucas came in and added more stuff because the CGI on those things are terrible.
Right, yeah.
It's just like, oh, God.
You would never have touched the original version. Just leave it alone.
I would have left it alone at the restored version.
Okay.
Yeah, not the studio version.
Right. I'll let you know what I would do to fix this movie.
Okay.
I would completely turn this back into a short film.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I would do. I would cut off about an hour and
Because it's
15 minutes, and I would leave the last 15 minutes to be a super stellar chase scene movie in a sci-fi dystopian. Like, why are they chasing him? I don't know, but this is freaking sweet. And you know what I mean? And it sounds amazing. But George Lucas's first job as a professional like filmmaker was he was working with this race car driver, I think. And he's making these films for the race car driver on a race car track. And I think some of the shots that he does here, especially with the race car that he uses, I think were those shots that he worked on for that race car filmmaker. I think it was like a documentary or something. So it was cool that he was using, because that's when the movie was awesome to me. Like when the race cars happened and the sound, and it like looked like TIE fighters fighting, and it had this action, and the motorcycle cops, they're flipping and they're crashing, and I'm like, was that a real guy that took that hit? Like, wow, that looked dangerous, because he gets smashed, and that's what I would do. I would completely cut off the all of it, all the beginning, because it doesn't really add much, because at the end of the day, it's a chase movie, and that's basically what it ended up being. The other stuff was just kind of I want to say filler, but it was just kind of unneeded exposition that, like, okay, at the end of the day, he's just trying to be free. Let's just focus on that part, him running away.
Because I honestly don't know at the end where it's like, the police are going like, you shouldn't be out there, you won't survive. And I go like, I have no idea to believe them or not when you're out there. It's just like, okay, he's out. What
Right.
now what?
Yeah.
I guess the movie's over.
So I guess that's going to kind of lead us into our interpretation, right? So I'm going to start, because I think this might help you understand this movie a little bit better.
Okay.
Okay, we got to look at George Lucas at the time of his life. I think he's probably like early 20s, and he just got out of college. I think this whole film and what he's talking about, in my opinion, is a metaphor for him leaving his house, leaving the strict rules of his parents, leaving all that plan for him, and him breaking out into the real world, into what he wants to do. The whole part about him and the female is probably like his interpretation of having these adult relationships with the opposite sex, but like still unable to process the decision making of the time that will affect his future. So I think some of that is he's, they say that writing is therapeutic.
Yeah.
And I think that's his psyche. I think that's what's happening in his life right now. I think he's trying to express himself. I mean, think about it. Like, throughout the entire movie, something is telling you what to do, what to think, how to act, how to move. The whole time he's being told what to do. And if you're a parent, you kind of understand what I'm talking about, because I have like a younger kid, and she cannot make a sudden little anything wrong without me trying to correct her. You know what I mean? So it's.
Oh yeah, kids are rebellious in nature.
Exactly. And I think that's what's happening in this film. He's like rebelling against the system, rebelling against his parents, rebelling against society, rebelling against the government, rebelling. It's like the thing. And he just wants to be free. He wants to be free of, he wants to have a relationship with the girl in the physical part, but like, and then, of course, like she gets pregnant, and it's like, oh boy, now she's gonna, keep me here or whatnot. So all of that is kind of going through him. He needs to write a story. This is what's going on in his life, and this is what came out. And he loves sci-fi. He read comic books and watched movies. You see the Buck Rogers in the beginning.
Oh yeah, like I was going to ask, do you know the significance of that? Was Buck Rogers a thing?
Buck Rogers is like a huge influence on him. Yeah.
Okay.
He used to watch, like, he used to go to the in the 40s or 50s, he used to go to like the movie theaters and watch the serials. They were little movies, and and tune in next week. And
Because I didn't know if Buck Rogers was solely created for THX because it just appears.
No.
And I was just like,
No.
Is this a?
I think that it existed before him.
Okay.
Yeah, that's like one of his things. What was the one from? So Buck Rogers was a big influence. I think Flash Gordon, and then the one from Mars, John Carter, was another influence of his. And
they made a movie, and like they were going like, this influenced Star Wars.
Right,
And
exactly. That's influenced George. Then he read Joseph Campbell's book after all of this. Then he started worrying about character development and arcs and all that after reading Joseph Campbell's book, Hero with a Thousand Faces, and then he got better.
Oh yeah. Like usually your first film will probably be maybe one of your more personal films.
Exactly.
Like Eraserhead.
Good suggestion.
Or Mad Max.
Yeah.
Like that one,
very good.
It's very much a more artsy version of Mad Max. And the other ones, that's when like it started to get crazy.
Right.
Where just like, okay, we're gonna have chase scenes and whatnot. We're gonna have barely any dialogue.
Right. So this is about freedom. It's about him breaking free. I think at the end, it's a big metaphor of him like finally, being out in nature and being alone. Now he can start his life. Now he can follow his dreams. He can dream and he can have goals and his own goals, not somebody else's goals. His dad was always trying to control him to like stay at home at Modesta and be part of like his business that he owned. And I think a lot of that came out in this film, and he wanted to speak to that. And I think that's what happened.
Yeah.
We got this movie from it. So what do you think the interpretation is?
Well, I think you did a good job at giving your interpretation of the film. I will also just throw out the distrust of the government,
Right.
Because that probably was a good factor for him to try and make this film.
Sure.
Like I said, this movie seems to deal with a lot of stuff, so there was probably a lot going on in George's head at the time.
There was a lot going on in the country too.
Trying to become your own individual, police brutality,
Right.
all of these things that were probably a factor. I don't think I have much to add in that regard, but
Do you want to go first for the recommendations?
well, like I was saying, this movie kind of reminded me. Well, I think you said it, and I also said it, but it kind of reminds me of 1984. Maybe I'll have another recommendation at a moment, but right now, things that come to mind are just 1984. And there's also another little ditty that maybe you guys have heard called Star Wars.
A little ditty.
Yeah.
My recommendation for this film is a little film called from Ray Bradbury called Fahrenheit 451. That movie was very much almost like the same scenario. There's a government, you're not allowed to read books, and what happens when a guy starts reading books?
Oh,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing here. Like, there's a government in charge. You're not allowed to have physical, emotion or physical contact with anybody. What happens when a guy starts having physical contact with somebody? So I think there's a lot, of similarities. I think 1984 again, because Big Brother is kind of watching.
I think I thought of another one.
Okay, good.
V for Vendetta.
V for Vendetta. Yep.
That's something that came to mind.
Remember, what was it?
The 5th of November.
The 5th of November.
Either the comic or the movie. I think those are both good in their approach to source material.
What about any of the Francis Ford Coppola movies? Do you think any of those kind of Apocalypse Now, maybe?
Apocalypse Now. I watched Apocalypse Now. I don't know if I'd fully recommend it because of this film,
But it's kind of weird because, like, this movie starts with the credits rolling.
oh yeah, like it almost the way it was going. It made me think the movie had just ended.
Yeah, and I think they're like once again they're trying to buck the system, kind of break the rules, and then like Apocalypse Now does the same thing with no credits, with no just like I think the Redux version or whatever, like there's no credits in the beginning. There's no, it just like starts. And they're trying to play with the rules, I think.
There's always going to be sci-fi dystopias, things like that. There's so many examples out there. It's just like it's almost hard to pick one. But like as I was saying, also, even early director films like Eraserhead, Mad Max, they're always going to be like those are movies that you can probably recommend because they're also probably one of the more artsy versions of the director. They're probably the more personal stuff. Like even Jordan Peele's Get Out. It's that feels like it was a very personal film for him.
Right. Yeah. Get out. Like it's almost like he's saying, "Movie, get out of me." You know. Watch American Graffiti because that's the next movie that George does, and so you can see his progression in movie making because once again it's about
his progression and regression,
and it's almost the same story, but like from a different perspective. He brings it, because he's chasing American Graffiti. The characters pretty much they're just kind of like hanging out and they're chasing, trying to find girlfriends and movies, and then they're moving on with their lives, and they're in a transition between high school and college, and some of them are going to college, and some of them are going to work, and some of them are going. Some of them have to go to work because they're in relationships and their girlfriends got pregnant and they can't, they can't move on with their lives because now they have to be grown-ups. So American Graffiti kind of like tackles that. It's almost like his next step in life.
First it was sci-fi, then it was character drama, then it was a mixture of both.
Yeah, and then what do you get? You get a phenomenon, right? Well, everything has a beginning, and I believe if you love Star Wars, it starts at THX 1138.
Also, do you have any recommendations for just like general stuff? Anything you've been watching as of late?
I just got done watching Comrade Detective on Amazon.
Right, I think you've recommended that to me, and I got to remember that.
Right. I've been watching The Watchmen TV show, which is a lot of fun for me.
Yep.
And then I just started watching Alpha House. It's like another political, like comedy type show on Amazon, kind of like in the realm of Veep, which I really like comedies about Washington D.C. I don't know, something about them is just fun. I don't know, like people in charge, but like they're humans and they have all these flaws, and I don't know. I'm kind of into that kind of stuff.
So I've been watching. I started rewatching Netflix's Daredevil, and I've been enjoying that. I started playing a video game called Control, which is basically an organization that specializes in weird phenomena, paranormal stuff. Say like you have a water bottle or something, and every time you drink it, you gain 3 years of life or something. But it takes 3 years of life from someone else.
Oh,
so things like that. They need to like. There's like There's at a certain point you find a rubber duck, and this woman is like trying to ask you questions, and it's all done seriously, and it's just like super funny because like. It's just a rubber duck, and you don't know what it does.
All right.
It's just super. But I also watched Doom Patrol, and not recently, but it's a show that I recommend people try checking out. It's an odd one. It deals with a lot of weird stuff, but I also like it when shows deal with weird stuff, and yeah, it's weird concepts. So that's a recommend for me.
Yeah, do you want to give us a little teaser on what our next movie we're going to try to tackle? This is completely new to me, so I'm interested.
Okay, so bit of an age gap between us. He was born in '78. I'm born in '96, so we might have separate tastes and whatnot. We've talked about projects that or shows we've watched behind the scenes, and I would just like to take a moment to, say like maybe I was a little harsh on you on certain opinions, and I would like to apologize on that.
Oh. That's fine. Thank you.
So, if I ever came across too harsh, I'm sorry.
And I'm sorry if I, somehow, came across hard as well.
So I would also just like to say, because of the age gap, we might have different opinions on things like that, and we different thoughts and like different ways of coming to a project. But due to our age gap, would you say that since I was probably really young? And you said you've graduated when I was being born. So would you say that while I was still learning how to spell my name, you were being trained to conquer life?
Okay. I would say that. Yeah.
That's my hint.
Okay. That sounds interesting. I'm glad. Thank you for giving us that little tidbit. I think we're going to close things out. What do you think, Raj?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to our very first episode. Hopefully,
sorry if it came off a little awkward at times. We're still getting the hang of this.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get better at this, and please, judge us on this episode. We're new. We're excited, and hopefully we provide a better listening experience in the future. But at this point, this is where we're at. This is our THX 1138 version of us, and at least we're out there. And if contact us if you have any comments. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We have
so many places. Yeah, so many places.
It's too long to list. Sci-Fi Rewind, and you should be able to find us. And we'll see you soon.
All right, everyone, take care.
All right, take care. Have a good
New year.
Yeah, everybody just be safe.
Because, we're right near the new year at the time of this recording. So take care, everyone.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Keep up the good work and prevent accidents. This shift is concluded.